Good evening, everybody. And before we get into the usual introductions, I do want to say that we here want to send our thoughts and energies to anybody in the path of Hurricane Ian right now. It's a big bad boy. And, hopefully everybody within that path stays safe. So I want to get that off the jump.
You might even say that it feels fairly apocalyptic.
Who knew, right? Come up with
I
this idea
mean,
a week ago, and next thing you know, for some people, it's a very bad night.
I feel like you just were setting the whole hurricane up to be a segue into the podcast.
I would not put it past me.
Hmm. I mean, good. No, not good, but
All about that
creative.
marketing.
Creative.
Well, speaking of me, I'm Josh, and I'm joined as always by the lovely and talented Jen.
Hi, everybody. We are currently hurricane free here in Hawaii, but as I was saying before the podcast, we're no stranger to hurricanes either. However, uh, I'm so really, I've seen pictures of Ian and it looks devastating. Wow. I hope everybody is safe. It
Here
looks
in
terrible.
Northeast Florida, they call this barbecue weather.
Oof.
You might
I call it
remember
moving to another state weather.
what's his face, Lane Pittman.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's one of ours.
Oh, boy.
So tonight we have put together our list of end of the world movies, and I'm going to take a split second to pull a Jen here and explain why I did this. And when I say pull a Jen, I mean I did research.
Okay, that's the best compliment I think I've gotten all day, so I'll take it.
I called you lovely and talented, like the first thing, and you're like, you said I did research.
I know, but
That's wonderful.
that's platitudes. I mean, if you really want to get under my skin, then you just compliment my intelligence, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm so yours. So yeah, great, good job.
Okay, then we'll go with the brilliant researcher.
Yeah, see, now I'm beaming. Super awesome. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm going to throw all that research out the window. I read some psychological papers, some .edu stuff, and they all said a lot of different things. No real consensus about why people are obsessed with the end of the world. Whether it's fatalism or nihilism, it's there is this fascination about the end, and the one thing that I think everybody kind of agrees on is people want to see the end. I mean, they may not welcome the end, but they're like, I'm here, and I kind of want to see how this whole humanity thing plays out.
Nine times out of 10, it seems not so good.
Yeah, but as a brilliant mathematician once said, life um, um, finds a way. So, and another thought, because there are a lot of different religions out there that have their own philosophies about the world ending, and some people see it as a wondrous return of a deity, and others see it as the ultimate smiting of the ne'er do wells, and even without religious connotations, there are people out there that are like, well, at least I know if I'm going, everybody's going with me. So I wanted to put together a list of films that some might consider have happy endings ish for the protagonists and whatnot, but maybe for humanity as a whole, not so much. So that's where we get tonight's list.
I mean, it okay. So as a concept, I have to admit I really struggled with this. And just as a small piece of business, okay. This podcast is not brought to you by Target's favorite day maple shortbread cookies, but I have eaten a boatload of these cookies tonight. So if the podcast goes off the rails, that's why. It's these cookies. They're so good, but there's so much sugar in them. So I just thought I'd say that just in case I inadvertently say something I shouldn't. Um, okay, this list. I had such a difficult time with this list. I made a list right after our last podcast. And I went back and I looked at it and I thought, this is the most boring list I've ever put together. I hate it. But what can I do? I mean, it felt like these are the end of the world kind of movies, and I was not putting the kind of real thought into it that I then subsequently did over the weekend, where I came up with a bunch of movies that are not necessarily like on the top movie lists of, hey, here's some movies for the end of the world, although there were oddly, after I started like cross-referencing a bunch of different lists, all of a sudden I did notice that, yeah, okay, there were a bunch. um but I chose these for, I think, the right reasons. Whereas my first list was just like, well, these are end of the world movies. This is what we got. And I had to really go back and think about, okay, wait a minute, what movies do I really like that sort of give me that feeling like, oh, yeah, okay, wait a minute, this is the kind of thing that I want to see. Not necessarily this is the kind of thing that is just, here's the end of the world. Right? Does that make sense?
That makes absolute sense.
All
I
right.
get it.
Well, hopefully the list will make sense as it unfolds. I'll do my best to at least give a small explanation for why I chose the movie, as opposed to just this is a movie about the end of the world.
Okay, okay. And Adam has a comment about your cookies.
Oh, did I miss his? Ah, it's so true though. I mean, honestly, I'm I can't even give them a different name other than saying that, look, this is like, if you're grown up and you have your own money, and you don't go buy drugs, you go buy cookies. And yeah, that's what I chose to do. So yeah. No, that's terrible. Anyway, so what's your number 10 movie, Josh? Because I really want to know.
My number 10 movie is, for me, it's cheap, but considering its title, I couldn't justify leaving it off the list completely. 1998, Michael Bay, Armageddon.
Oh gosh.
It
Okay.
has a reputation, I know, but 16-year-old me absolutely loved watching this disaster piece and was still am into Ben Affleck and Bruce Willis. So this was a great combination for a teenage me.
Okay. Now this movie actually has some current science reference, though, doesn't it?
Yes, but I'll let you explain.
Well, I mean, not that I'm any, no great purveyor or watcher of NASA or anything, but I did hear that we sent a spaceship up and crashed it into a moon orbiting an asteroid. Or, yeah, an asteroid. And we did so to try to knock it off trajectory so that we
Yes,
could decide whether or not this would be a viable, basically like Earth defense system. And it turns out I haven't seen the final results. I don't know if it pulled it off trajectory enough to like make the math sort of work, but we do know that it hit it, that it actually, it made the target, which, I don't know about you, but I've always thought this about that movie Armageddon too. I always thought that the math that is involved in that has got to be, pardon the pun, but astronomical to calculate. Just absolutely like, whole, it breaks my brain to think about how much math is involved in all of this. So I mean, good job, NASA. And also, who would have predicted that Armageddon would have been the fact of today? I wouldn't.
I'm pretty sure they have a drilling team on standby at all times, just in case. That's what NASA does, right? Prepare for everything.
I think my big question is, are there enough ex NASA people out there that are, in that sort of like, um, I'm not even sure what kind of mood I should assign to the Bruce Willis character, other than just, he's I can't, no, I don't know. I won't even go into it. How many Bruce Willises are there that are being groomed by NASA now that will end up coming out of retirement later to save us from an asteroid? It's going to be crazy.
Well, let's hope that they have a daughter that's dating one of their employees, so we can.
Adam is so right. Armageddon was so terrible. It really is a terrible movie, but you're also right. It is absolutely one of those. It's so terrible. It's so good. Like, it's so fun to watch.
Given the choice between Armageddon and just we'll say Pearl Harbor, I think this one nails it a little better.
Oh, absolutely. I think you're 100% right.
So, in case you don't know, Armageddon is about scientists finding out, hey, there's an asteroid headed our way, and they're wondering, how do we stop this asteroid? And they're like, well, we could teach a bunch of astronauts how to drill into it and plant a nuke. And someone says it'd be easier just to get the drillers trained to be astronauts. So that's what they did. They get this drill team from an oil rig and send them into space to insert nukes. A little leaving on a jet plane, and we don't want to pay no taxes later. They're off in space. And it's got Steve Buscemi, Billy Bob Thornton, Liv Tyler, Owen Wilson, Michael Clark Duncan, Bruce Willis, as mentioned, and even Eddie Griffin as he's trying to chase down this dog at the beginning of the movie. Like we said before, it's, I'm just going to quote Adam here. Armageddon is so terrible and wonderful and crazy. It's everything all rolled into one, and that's why it's my number 10. How about you, Jen? What's your number 10?
Okay, my number 10 is decidedly a bit depressing. And I mean, it's sort of referenced in the title, actually. It's a movie called Melancholia. It was released in 2011, and I have to admit that the only reason that I watched this is because I watch everything by the director Lars von Trier, who is a Danish filmmaker, and does just insane good work. Melancholia is basically about these two sisters who, the struggle is real. They are absolutely oddly estranged from each other, but they are trying to make it work. And what happens is that a um, there's this huge event that happens, and they find out that a rogue planet is about to collide with the Earth, and there is no stopping it. I mean, there's like some sort of references in the movie that, well, maybe they can, but really it's actually about making your peace before the end of the world. And it is honestly, the two characters are named Justine and Claire. Those are the main characters. It is honestly one of the most brilliant movies about the end of the world that I have seen executed, because it does away with all of the false narrative of holding on to hope that the end of the world isn't going to happen, and instead focuses on hope that you can die with some kind of resolution to the everyday things that you didn't get to resolve. So, I mean, in a way, it's kind of like, listen, we all know we're going to be ghosts, so let's not have any unfinished business. I mean, I love that, but then the other part of this that I absolutely is just astounding is the cinematography. The cinematography in this movie is it's it's unparalleled. I mean, the light, there are things that happen with light, there are things that happen inside rooms outside of this huge sprawling estate, their costumes, everything is just so perfect. And it makes the mess of the end of the world feel in stark contrast. It's an absolutely brilliant film. I super love it. Um it is definitely a hard movie to watch, though. So that's my number 10 pick, Melancholia from 2011.
That has been on my watch list forever, but I've
It's
never been
very
in
worth it.
the. You got to be in some sort of mood for a Kirsten Dunst flick, I think.
You know, you do, and it does not turn its eyes away from a very stark state of mind. Like, you know, this isn't a happy feel good movie. This is definitely a movie about reconciliation, but reconciliation understanding that it is toward the inevitable end. So there's that. It's quite fascinating as character study. It's quite fascinating. Very, very, very much liked it.
Well, it looks like Adam's on board.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it doesn't. It's not. I'm not saying it's the greatest film in the world, but for an end of the world film, it actually does a lot toward focusing our attention on what's really important, which is what do we as humans do when we know that the end is nigh. And I did really like it. I thought it was good.
Well, I will check it out. It sounds like it's more closer to Virgin Suicides than Bring It On. As far as Kirsten Dunst goes. Ghost.
It's very sad. It is very sad as well.
But I will say I saw Bring It On 10 times and The Virgin Suicides once. So
But I'm sure you saw Spider-Man a few times, so there's that.
yeah. Gotta say,
So there you go.
doesn't hold up.
Yeah. All right, what's your number 9?
Number 9. No list would be complete, and I'm not flinging poo on your list because I'm sure the rest of your list is also amazing. But for me, no list could be complete in this category without Roland Emmerich. And I know what you're thinking. Well, he destroys the world pretty frequently. So which one am I going to pick? Well, I'm gonna do the one where he went for it all. 2012.
Oh no.
Is it a good movie? No. It is a special effects marathon.
It's a fiasco. I'm so sorry.
It's not one of those movies that you watch for the plot, that's for sure. You watch it to watch the world burn. And does it ever? There really isn't any reason to talk about the story. Just in 2009, a movie was released about 2012 because a Mayan calendar ended.
Ran out of days.
So if the Mayans calendar ended, that must mean the end of the world. And there were people that really, really bought into this.
And we wonder why QAnon is so popular.
I don't.
Okay, let me throw it backwards. All the way back to 1999 when we thought the world was going to end with the 2000 bug.
Y2K is going to kill us all.
I mean, people were even planting gardens, so it's not surprising to me to think that, well, people that just found out, in quotes, about the ending of the Mayan calendar, which we've known about for centuries, indicated that was the end of the world. Yes.
I
Way to
was
go,
told
guys.
this in like 1996. I knew a guy that's like, the world's going to end in 2012. It's like,
wow.
Oh, okay. So we got some time then. Okay.
I mean, I could do it one better. I could write a script where 2012 was the end of the world, and that's when all the Mandela effects happened, and
I've had that same idea.
Alternate realities.
I've literally had that same idea.
Okay, collaboration coming on.
The world ended in 2012. That's when we all entered the Matrix.
Yeah, right. Oh, brother.
And everything falls back to, the Mandela effect falls back to some random programmer that couldn't remember something exactly right.
I think that could definitely take off. And I feel like people would actually buy into it too. So,
yeah, next thing you know, they're going to come to us going, how did you know?
Okay. I just can't.
2012 is my number 9. Let's move away from this one.
All right. My number 9 pick is a movie that everybody sort of loves to hate. It got 18% at Rotten Tomatoes, so that should tell you something right out of the box. I think the IMDb score is only 5.5 out of 10, or something close to that. It's called Legion. It is the 2010 film with Paul Bettany and Lucas Black, and somebody, who was the other famous person in that? It was somebody else famous in that. Anyway, it's about sort of the eternal quest between good and evil, and how the quest between good and evil comes down for some reason to a diner slash gas station with a pregnant waitress, and all bets are on who can basically claim, or I guess claim is a good word, the baby that she's going to have. It's absolutely trash, but it is one of my favorite end of the world movies because I feel like this is exactly the way that we look at that epic fight. We just look at it as, okay, we humans are just sort of like pawns in the way. We really don't matter. We're just vessels to use. And it's so interesting because in this particular movie, well, not this movie, but the movie spawned a series, and the series was good. There was so many awesome moments in that series. I have no idea how they pulled such richness from this particular movie, but the movie itself was not super well done. It's just, this is the epitome of the end of the world. And if I were looking for how do we think about it, this is definitely one of the movies that I would choose. So there you go. Legion from 2010.
Adam says Legion is sick all over the place, but I love it.
It is so all over the, like, the messaging of the movie doesn't even really make sense if you I mean, under scrutiny it's kind of, there's some metaphors in there. There's definitely a deeper analogy for, the portals between good and evil, but in terms of sending angels and archangels, and it just doesn't make any sense at all. And then all the writing on the skin, I mean, like, it's just, it wants to tell a story, but then it needed the series to even begin to unpack it. So there you go.
He goes on to say it's a greasy cheeseburger. You know you shouldn't, and you're going to feel bad afterwards, but you do it anyway.
Exactly. Yes. And anyone who watches Legion with a Rotten Tomato scores of 18 knows what they're getting into. I mean, you're deep in the gravy at that point. So
Well, I haven't seen it, so I don't really have anything to add. So I will.
you're probably lucky for that, Josh.
My number 8.
You're number 8.
Now, when most people think of the end of the world, they don't think laugh out loud comedy, right? Well, I do.
I knew you would.
My assistant just brought me a bottle of water, and I do appreciate it. All right, my number 8. The world is ending. And while it's going on, a group of celebrities are attending a party at James Franco's house. This is the plot for 2013's This Is the End.
I love this movie, by the way.
It's so good, right?
Yep. It actually is. Again, it's bad, but it's great.
And that's what I said. That's the whole plot. The world is ending around him. The raptures happened. It gives Jay Baruchel like a bigger spotlight than he usually gets, which is interesting. Putting guys like James Franco, Jonah Hill, Seth Rogen, all these guys. They're not background by any means, but they're a part of Jay's story. And when you see scenes like Jonah Hill getting possessed, right?
Mm-hmm.
The power of Christ compels you. Oh, does it? Does it compel me? Is it anything new? No, but it's a lot of fun. It's I have a soft spot in my heart for uh, actors that will show up and play parodies of themselves. It's one of the reasons why "Always Be My Maybe" is one of my favorite, romantic comedies. Keanu Reeves shows up and he plays Keanu Reeves, just a douchey version of himself. And whereas a lot of people, they have that idea of, I have an image to maintain. These guys, they know who they are. They know who their fans are, and they made this movie for their fans. And honestly, you got to think it's a good day when you get a budget for a movie where you just get to hang out with your friends.
You're right. I feel like this is definitely a movie to watch if the end of the world was happening, just to be kind of in your face. Yep.
That's I can't. I People talk about grown ups being awful movies, right? And admittedly, they're not great by any means. But like I said, when you can get paid to hang out with your buddies and go on vacation and whatnot, you're doing life right.
Indeed.
So that's my number 8.
All right. Um. Okay. So my number 8 is remarkably close to Legion. However, this movie is to me an absolute masterpiece. It isn't. It's not the end of the world per se, as in we're watching the end of the world. This movie is a little bit more subtle. This movie is called Gabriel. It was released in, I believe, 2007. It's an Australian film. It stars a man named Andy Whitfield, who would then later on move to a series called Spartacus. It the movie itself was made for $150,000. Now, I don't know about you, but I mean, like that's basically the mortgage on somebody's house and bam, you have a movie. It's like unheard of. And they did a lot with a little. So the premise of the story is Gabriel is he goes to purgatory to find out what has happened to four of the seven who have fallen. They're basically they are angels who somehow ended up in purgatory as well. He wants to know what happened to them. It is highly implied that basically this is the end of the world, that purgatory is now full. This is where everybody, because everyone has lost hope. Even the angels have lost hope. What makes this, I feel like, so amazing, or the reason that I chose it at all is because this is the kind of end of the world idea that makes me sort of question, how do we think the end of the world really comes about? Is it something biblical? Is it something and to be honest, this is not your standard retelling of angels and demons or anything like that. It is extremely forward thinking in its inception and idea. Um, and the performance by Andy Whitfield is absolutely astounding. It's just so good. And he discovers things that I think he didn't want to discover at all and loses faith himself, which, by the end of the film makes you sort of wonder, well, what has it all been for? Until you realize that, yeah, no, maybe there's something just a little bit more to that. But that's why you have to watch the movie all the way through to understand what is really happening. I mean, I give it all the stars. I absolutely love it. It's moody, it's atmospheric, it's got all of the elements of some excellent storytelling, and
And a Seems there was a slight technical issue. Let's see if
On my back. Sorry about that.
you're back.
Yeah, I think it was. I had a power glitch on my side. Sorry, there's no hurricane happening, but still I get power glitches. So anyway, so this is definitely my movie. For this spot, for the number 8 spot, I absolutely love it. If you liked Legion and you're looking for something a little bit more supercharged and atmospheric, Gabriel is the movie to watch. So that's the one. And we are at number 7. Ooh, I love my number 7 choice, so can't wait to talk about it.
I just added Gabriel to my watch list.
You know what? I think you'll really like it. I honestly, I think you of all people would really like that.
Just got to figure out how to get my hands on it. It doesn't seem to be streaming anywhere.
It's an Australian movie, and I am happily, I actually have it on DVD, and I cherish it.
Well, bring it over. Let me borrow it.
I'll fly right over. Sounds good.
Well, my number 7 is the last in this string of less than stellar movies. At least I'm aware of the quality of these movies. Okay,
but well, I have lots more, so you never fear, gentle listener. You'll be entertained. No problem. Go ahead. Sorry.
This movie, 2009, directed by Alex Proyas, stars Nicolas Cage. It's called Knowing. And it took me a while to realize that this movie is about essentially the end of the world. Because Nicolas Cage has a kid who's making these weird predictions through his drawings, and he figures out that they're essentially omens, right? And they start deciphering what it all means. I love a good treasure hunt, and this is kind of like that, where they're following clues to find out what the secret is. And they do that in the background. You know, it's more like a B story that they don't even really go into. Weird stuff is happening all over the world, and things are escalating and escalating until finally you get to that point where you're like, oh, yes, this is all leading to the destruction of the planet. Not just a disaster where everybody in the world is affected and most people die. Nope. The entire planet is going bye-bye.
Mm-hmm.
It has a sad ending. And not just in everybody's dead, so this is sad kind of way, but decisions have to be made. And that's the awful part here, not trying to go into the spoilers, because once they unravel the mystery, because they do, and that's the whole point of the movie, right? Once they figure everything out and they find who they're supposed to find, realizing that it's still not necessarily the answer you want for these characters. With only the slightest glimmer of WTF kind of hope. Again, not a great film, but it's got some twists and turns and good enough special effects. Plus, the subject matter has always been intriguing to me. So all of these things combined made it my number 7.
Nice. Also, I feel like, no end of the world list could possibly be complete without at least one Nicolas Cage movie. So thank you for inserting that into our list, because that's important.
Glad to cover our bases.
Similarly, no, not similarly. I won't even go down that road. My number 7 choice is one of those movies that if you've seen it, you love it. Well, at least most people I know that have seen it love it. Um, but it really scores pretty terrible across the board. Critics, I guess, just did not like it. But it has an all-star cast of Jason Momoa, Keanu Reeves, Jim Carrey, Suki Waterhouse, and even Diego Luna. Yes, I am
What?
talking about yeah. Yeah, do you know what movie I'm talking about?
I
That
have
has
no
all these
idea.
people. Holy okay. I'm going to blow your mind. So, there is a movie that was released in 2016 called The Bad Batch. It is basically the movie that is it's the end of the world and there are roaming bands of cannibals out there. But it's more than that. It's so much more than that. There are also these sort of enclaves of civilization that do all kinds of amazing albeit strange things with all of this end of the world technology that they're able to pull together. Keanu Reeves plays a similar. Keanu Reeves plays a singular type of character that is absolutely amazing to watch. I really love him. Um, Only slightly more fun is Jason Momoa's outdoor and junkyard gym. I mean, you can't make this up. It is so good. But the premise of the story is basically these cannibalistic tribes. They are fighting with each other. They're fighting over territory. They're fighting about all these different slights, and they're trying to get resources. It is it's a little bit like, if I had to sort of classify it, off the rails Mad Max. And Mad Max is already off the rails, but no, this takes it to a whole new level. And it just sort of like made me really stop and think, okay, one, why do I like this movie? Other than the fact that Jason Momoa, Keanu Reeves, and even Jim Carrey are in it. Um, no, the reason that I liked it was because it kind of treats the end of the world as if it is the irreverence that we give to human life and the value of human dignity that sort of keeps us from sliding into something more terrible than we actually are. And it's crazy because there's also this idea, like if it's going to be the end of the world, are are the people who are doing bad things still bad? Or hey, it's the end of the world. You guys just got to do whatever you got to do to survive. And that is kind of where all of these crazy ideas come in. So, really good movie. Um it was I think I said 2016. Um Definitely check it out if you haven't seen it. It's a little bit slow in some places, but it's well worth the watch.
Well, I immediately added it to my watch list, and I see that it is on Netflix. So
It is unique. It stands out as a unique entry into post-apocalyptic, end of the world genre. It does not disappoint in that sense. It like I said, it's a bit slow and sometimes dry in the middle, but it does tell a hell of a story. So, can't wait to see what you think about it, cuz yeah, I was really impressed by it.
then I guess we're on my number 6.
Number 6.
Now, this movie I kind of stumbled across a couple years back on Hulu. See if it's still there. It is not. It's on Peacock now. Well, in 2012, Todd Berger released "It's a Disaster."
Oh.
Are you familiar with this one?
Mhm. I think like you, I also found that on Hulu.
Yeah, did the poster, the guy in a suit, a chemical suit, holding up a champagne flute of what's that stuff called? A mimosa.
Yeah, a mimosa.
And the movie is about four couples that meet for Sunday brunch, and as they're preparing to have their adult um, friend stuff, you know, just couples gathering for lunch, they find out basically the world's ending. Well, there's a chemical attack, and it's very widespread, and humanity is in danger. So, at first they're doing everything they can to survive, and they're trying to do whatever it is. And the thing is, with this movie, it pretty much takes place in one location, at one house, during this one afternoon. It's not this great big look at the world at large. It's a fun weird thing to say about inevitable death. It's a fun look at people. It's Julia Stiles, love David Cross, and America Ferrera. These the main standouts, people that you definitely would have heard of, all doing what they do best character wise, and seeing how each of these people interacts with each other, and how some get along, some don't. They have issues with each other that they need to hash out as one person tries to rally the troops to you know we have to try to survive, and another one is it's pointless, gives up. It ends with, I would say, a very funny something. Yeah, I was about to spoil the whole dang thing, but no. It's a Disaster was a pleasant surprise for me when I stumbled across it. Maybe it's because I was in the right mind frame. Maybe it's because uh, I like single location character studies, or just movies about people, real people, and the things that they would do in extreme situations. It's a Disaster wound up on a top 10 list of movies in 2012 for me in the
Hmm.
subsequent years, because I enjoyed it that much, or maybe I'm just that much of a David Cross mark. I don't know. Certainly love me some America Ferrera, Superstore, yo. But yeah, It's a Disaster is my number seven.
Nice. Yeah, that I feel like that was kind of an unexpected
Sorry,
gem.
number six. My number six.
Yeah, number 6 was kind of an unexpected gem. I didn't expect much from it, but it was one of those Saturday afternoon, I've got nothing to watch. What's
Exactly.
on Hulu? And it ended up being, yeah, quite good, quite definitely worth an hour and a half of viewing time. So good choice.
It's nice when you stumble across something and you have no expectations. It's like you haven't seen trailers, you haven't read reviews, you haven't heard anybody talk about it. It's just,
Right.
oh, what's this movie? And I think
Honestly,
that's what this is in a nutshell.
Honestly, although I'll get to my number 6 in 1 second, but honestly, another movie exactly like that, not exactly with the same premise, but in that similar vein. I saw nothing and didn't know anything about the movie called Cargo, which was about the zombie apocalypse and a man trying to protect his little kid, his little baby, and I knew nothing about it. I just saw the poster for it and was like, "Oh, hey, look, it's the guy who played the Hobbit. This is going to be really good." Um, and same feel, same exact feel. Just absolutely loved it for everything that went into it. It did not make my list because I didn't feel like it was end of the world enough, but it was good. It was very good. Okay, my number 6 is a movie that stars a man who is my favorite actor in both The Mandalorian and in Justified. His name is
Is it
Timothy
me?
Oliphant.
Oh,
Were you in both? I didn't see
I
you.
might have been. It's been a crazy couple years.
Well, ironically, that is the title of the movie. It's called The Crazies. It is so amazing. I don't know if you've ever seen the original that it was based off of. It's quite
I've
a
not.
bit. It's different. I mean, different in the sense that, like, there's different stuff that's happening, but same idea. It is one of those movies that, even though I know what's coming, I cannot help but be jump scared. I cannot help but feel these impending moments of dread that the filmmakers set up. I love the sort of, hey, this is so rampant that there really isn't anything that you can do to stop it. Now all you can do is try to survive it. Um, and from an end of the world perspective, I like those kinds of movies because they focus the attention of what is happening to the characters instead of what is happening to the world. Obviously the characters are still going to want to know, hey, what's happening and what are we going to do? But when you're focused so much on the events of what is causing the end of the world, you lose sight of the actual deep character studies. And The Crazies does such a good job of making our focus on some central characters that are brilliantly formed. I absolutely love them. Timothy Oliphant is the sheriff, and some amazing things happen in this town when we find out, let's just say, some kind of chemical spills and causes mayhem. It The other reason that I really like this movie is because, as far as end of the world movies go, usually we end on these kernels of hope, right? Humanity can live on and will maybe everything can be fine. I always feel like The Crazies ends on the no, probably everything isn't going to be fine. And I kind of like that, just because it's a little bit different from what we normally see. So that is my number six choice. I don't know how you can watch The Crazies and not feel like there's something really spectacular happening here. So that was my number six.
You'd be crazy not to.
You would. There is nothing that gets my blood going like that pitchfork dragging down the hospital hallways. I mean, my skin is already goosebumps right now from that. I just thinking about it makes me so creeped out. That's power.
Gotta love memories and its ability to really affect you physically.
Wow, we're in the top five already. This is
Top
exciting.
five. Top five.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, maybe I should have put together my list a little bit earlier because I don't have a top five.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm kidding. No, my top five actually has been pretty locked since the list was announced.
You know what? So is mine. That's the one thing that I didn't change on my list was my number one.
In fact, 2 minutes before air tonight, I swapped out my 9 and 10 because I was like, nope, not enough people die in Armageddon, so that's going to be my number 10.
Oh, okay. Well, good because you know what your criteria was. I'm glad to hear
No, I just in this particular case, I was like, too hopeful for the end of the world.
it. Too hopeful. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, I can see that.
But my number five is another laugh out loud comedy. Except it's one where you're laughing because your eyes are filled with tears
Oh
at
no.
how true this rings.
Oh no.
Because in 2021, Adam McKay gave us Don't Look Up. It has been a film that has gotten some traction from the people that support it, as well as some hate from the people that hate it.
Yeah. Do you think that they care that they were mocking us, or what do you think?
I don't.
Yeah,
I
I
think
don't
Adam
either.
McKay put this together and he's like, you know, because right now, and for the last couple of years, especially, say the last 6 years or so, people have had these you know political glasses, these lenses that they're viewing everything through, and it filters out things that they they like. Honestly, they don't recognize the stuff that's just straight apolitical, but it really points out the things that they don't like. And Don't Look Up is Adam McKay's love letter to no, not a love letter. It's his rant, letter to the editor, talking about how left, right, rich or poor, you're all dumb.
Yes, the scoff and scorn and Don't Look Up is palpable, but that's what makes it great.
If you're somehow unaware of what this is about, too, uh, in the description they call them low level astronomers, played by Leonardo
Low level.
DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence. They find out that there's an asteroid coming to Earth, and they're properly freaking out. So the first thing they do, they feel it's their responsibility to warn the government, right? Because the government will do something. They get to the government. They talk to the president. Wonderful performance by Meryl Streep, and her son, played by Jonah Hill. He's straight up Jonah Hill. They're kind of God. It's hard to say even parroting at this point. But
It's
they're
really
they're
spot on.
they're stand-ins for a certain um, political family, and the first thing that they want to do is, well, what does this mean for our optics? Well, not good things, of course, because the world's going to end. And what turns out to be a mission to save the world becomes a commercial for a major tech company.
Oh my god.
And the whole time, the two astronomers, Leonardo DiCaprio, he's kind of getting caught up in the glitz and glamour of being, the handsome young scientist that's trying to save the world. And Jennifer Lawrence is kind of tossed aside as, kind of basically she's too ugly to listen to, right?
Oh god.
So she's freaking out like nobody is doing anything. What is wrong with you? She's basically the only one that seems that this is a major concern. So the movie, plays out, and the frightening thing about this is that it was written before, the COVID pandemic,
Right.
and I couldn't. I think everybody that saw it noticed. Oh my God, the parallels are uncanny, and this was written before it could be based on that. So Adam McKay called it. I'm going to say he called it, and just finally on this, the term "Don't Look Up," as the astronomers, get some traction behind, some celebrities, trying to, do the celebrity thing, and like, hey, I'm a celebrity, you should hear what I have to say. They're, you know, the government basically stops acknowledging that the asteroid exists. It's like, no, it's fake. It's fake news. And the the counter to that is, I mean, yeah, if you want to know if it's real, just just look up and you'll see it. It's right there. You'll see it. But the counter to that was don't look up. So it's a group of the population that is practically, literally burying its head in the sand to hide from scientific fact. And basically doing the if I don't see it, it's not there routine.
Mm-hmm.
So, hence the title for Don't Look Up. And that's my number 5.
I have to say, number one, I really love this movie, and number two, in terms of true, what's a good word for this? Um, well, I guess the way I could say it is there is a sardonic undercurrent happening in this movie that is not disappointing. It is absolutely like looking into the mirror, and you begin to, I think personally, realize that, this, first of all, we've been seeing this for a long time, and secondly, this is this is the state of play. And so all the people, I'm reminded actually of a bunch of other podcasts that we've had where we've talked about how glaringly in your face a movie can be about its absolute rip on something. Hey, there's supposed to be satire here. You're supposed to look at this and go, oh my God. And instead, you look at it and find some kernel of, yeah, hey, this is made for me. This is kind of like my movie. This is all about me. That's not a good thing. And that, I feel like that absolutely is where this movie goes. It does not spare anybody. Everybody is equally, not equally, but everyone is in some way complicit in not bringing forth both the real story or the story as it needs to be told, or whatever. Like, everybody is somehow complicit in it, and I do really like that, because I also feel like that is also very human. And again, if it's the end of the world, are we really concerned about what our politics is? It's so funny, because I think sometimes we would go, yeah, of course. I don't want to die one of them. Like, man, it's it's really harsh, actually. But that was a good movie. Very good choice. Excellent choice.
Thank you. Thank you. You're number 5, Jen.
All right. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to clear my throat there. Okay, my number 5 is a movie that I feel like is so underrated, and recently it's gotten a little bit of a resurgence. It definitely has a bit of a cult following. Matthew McConaughey is in this, and I have to say that it's the most unlikely role for Matthew McConaughey that I've ever seen, but it works so well. He is such a good, broody, dark character in this movie. And as far as it being incredibly end of the world and apocalyptic, this movie definitely hits it right away. It's called Reign of Fire. There are dragons. These people try to get rid of the dragons as much as they can. They also have to go out and forage, and it's a very dangerous thing. They live in these very small, sheltered kind of places, where they can, build fortifications. Basically, they're going back to sort of a medieval lifestyle. And heroes, well, I shouldn't say heroes, but leaders emerge, and there's a lot of ambiguity in terms of questions about what is the right way to do things and what isn't the right way to do things, and how are you forming yourself when clearly there might be something better out there. Are you just hiding yourself away? Like, it kind of tackles a lot of the stuff that I feel like we would be tackling through the end of the world. And as a plus, Matthew McConaughey and dragons. So I don't know how you miss on this. It's just too perfect as a post apocalyptic world to explore. I really loved it. I wish that they would remake this with slightly better VFX, because I feel like we could do something amazing with it. But as it is, I am completely willing to watch this again and again and again. It was just such a. I don't know. I feel like not enough people know about this movie, but I really loved it. So that's my number 5 pick,
I
Rain of
can't say
Fire.
that I've seen it, but I do know of it.
It's yeah. Well, we'll have to have a conversation about it at some point. So, what is your number 4 choice?
My number four is a movie put together by one of the greatest directors of all time.
Oh, we may have to do fisticuffs on this one. Yeah.
Maybe, maybe he's. It's definitely not just a personal opinion about the status of this particular director, but I think it could be. Yeah, it's right up there with one of the greats. I think 1964, Stanley Kubrick, Doctor Strangelove, or How He Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb.
Okay, I'm on board. I'm on board.
This is to put in context for some of you that might not have seen this particular film. Think of it like the Don't Look Up of its time,
Right.
where the the machismo of the military and the world leaders stands in the way of peace. Nobody wants to back down. Everybody's got their finger on the button. The Cold War, is raging on, being so close to mutually assured destruction. The idea that a situation like this, a situation that is just inherently fraught with multiple layers of anxiety, could also be a comedy, thanks in no small part to Peter Sellers.
Oh man, that he was brilliant.
Oh, absolutely. And the fact that he's not just a character, you know, he's there a few times. But watching, the military leaders, um, you know, throw their proverbial phalluses on the table and start their measuring contest to see who's the bigger man says, I think, a lot about the time that it was made and the fact that we are so far removed. We're, what, 58 years removed now. And we could look back and see that it was a lot of unnecessary drama and a lot of unnecessary tension that, quite frankly, deserved to be lampooned
Yeah.
because of the ridiculousness of it all. When leaders don't want to back down because, you know a real man wouldn't, and that's what it comes down to. So for Stanley Kubrick to be able to make a movie like this in the middle of it all, I think speaks volumes to the artistic talent of Stanley Kubrick, as well as the faith that was put in him to be able to tell his story. Doctor
Yeah.
Strangelove is in no way um, a bad movie. It
No.
holds a lot of strange company on my list, yes, but when it comes to quality of film, you will be very hard pressed to find something that checks all the boxes as well as Doctor Strangelove does.
Yeah, I totally agree. And on top of that, I have to say that this is like a really well made movie, not just I mean, obviously the story is really good, but just production wise, this movie is still such an iconic movie. It still has so many raw good elements in it. And of course, I mean, Peter Sellers is, I think, one of the movie's biggest assets, but it's if it's even possible, the brilliance of his performance sort of is like just a compliment to the way that the rest of the movie was made. I mean, Stanley Kubrick was, you're right, he's absolutely just top notch. So, okay, no fisticuffs on that one. We will agree that that is a good choice. Very good.
Well,
Um,
you're number 4.
so my number 4 is this. I struggled with this one. Actually, it's funny that I struggled with this one and not my number 3. You're gonna kill me for my number 3. But number 4 is the Book of Eli, and you. Okay, as far as depressing goes, most of the movies I think that are apocalyptic and post-apocalyptic are extremely weighty, and like I said, they think they try to end on a little bit of hope, but they generally I shouldn't say it that way. Most movies that are post-apocalyptic try to end on a little bit of hope, period. And then there is a genre of film that is sort of like it already knows that it's going to be sad, and it sets you up the entire way to accept the fact that this is all going to be for naught. But the Book of Eli kind of does a little bit of a trick where it does both. It sets you up to think that everything, all hope is lost and it's going to be terrible, but then it also throws in that little spin of cynical hope at the end. I loved this movie, I think, for the performances, but I also loved this movie because it captures something that is, I feel like it's different than a lot of post apocalyptic movies because they how can I describe what the Book of Eli does? It marries together a bunch of different myths and different ways of thinking about how we define humanity and what we want out of humanity, and it does so in a story that is uniquely us in the West. Um, and I really, really, really like that. I mean, the Book of Eli is the kind of story that makes you. It's not a story that you want to watch when you want to feel good. I mean, I regularly watch this movie if I need a good cry, um, but it also is uplifting in the sense that you realize, okay, not all hope is lost. Also, I have to say that just from the standpoint of one of the major overarching narratives, which is, knowledge is a thing to be protected and cherished. I love what they try to say about that humanity lives on through its knowledge and the preservation of knowledge, even if that knowledge is simply handed down from person to person, that it's important for people that have knowledge to impart that, to be the storytellers, to give that information to the next generation or a generation that can then use it. So it was kind of powerful in that sense. But from the apocalyptic standpoint, from the end of the world standpoint, you don't really feel like anything is going to change. The world is just, it's bleak and it's dying. But here's these little nuggets of something that might be good. And I love that. I feel like that is absolutely an end of the world movie that want to embrace. It's just really hard to embrace that one. So, number 4, The Book of Eli.
I admit I haven't watched it. And maybe, perhaps now I'll have that kick in the pants to cross it off my list.
Yeah, careful. Like watch it when you're in a good stable in a mood that's stable, because yeah, I don't know. Maybe it won't affect you the same way that it affected me, but it really it made me sad. It made me very sad.
So what you're saying is I can never watch it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. Maybe just watch it with somebody that can hold your hand. How's that?
So what you're saying is I can never watch it.
I'm sorry. Sorry. When I fly out to give you all the rest of the stuff that I need to give you, we'll watch it together.
Sounds good.
All right. All right, we're at number 3.
Number 3, top 3. Okay. This one, this one's a tough one. And yeah.
Is it tough because you think maybe it doesn't quite belong there, or is it tough because the subject matter is just so weighty?
I think for this particular movie, it's the subject matter. Because in 2020, Rick Roman Waugh, I think that's how you say his name, made Greenland.
Oh, good lord.
Now, imagine that you do government work and you get a message that says, get your family, you're leaving. And nobody else has a clue what's going on. And the government says, no, you have to do it now. Move, move, move. And then moments later, that's when the news breaks. The world is essentially doomed. And as you're packing up, your neighbors see you. And they think that you know something because guess what you do? They know who you are. They know what you do. And they're saying, take my kids, take them with you, take them to live. And you can't. You are literally leaving your old life behind to be destroyed. And all of this happens within the first 5 minutes. It wouldn't be a movie if everything went according to plan. So they try to get to their departure zone for the safe zone in Greenland. It's a safe zone because they have pre-selected individuals for survival. But along the way, of course, traffic. Traffic, right? And rioting and just a lot of scared people trying to figure out what to do. So they make their way to the airport where people are trying to break down the fences and get on the planes that are going to get them to safety. This movie's about Gerard. Well, it's not about Gerard Butler, but stars Gerard Butler, and he has a wife and kid, and they get separated. And they don't exactly get to follow through on the plan as written for them. So now they have an idea of where to go, but really no way to get there. So they're scrambling to figure out what to do to survive because they were chosen. I hate to say it like this, but they have a right to survive. But they're also coming across a lot of people that don't have that and that are just in dire straits. But they're also coming across people that are taking advantage of the chaos and are just causing chaos and havoc wherever they go for almost the sole purpose of, I'm finally free to do the evil things that I want to do.
Yeah.
There are no consequences anymore. Of course, I'm not going to give away the ending or anything like that, but it's this journey, this family's journey to find safety in the face of the end of everything, and as well as find each other to reunite. That, I mean, as a dad, makes me wonder what I would be willing to do to make sure that my family is safe. It's a very emotional journey, and it's no surprise that come award season it got recognition at the very least, which again we talked about it on TV dinners when it comes to movies that are nominated and things like that. I said a, a movie about the apocalypse getting nominated for Oscars? What? That's that's unheard of. I better check this out. Maybe it does something different, and it does. It tells a very personal story during a very big event, and that is why it's my number three.
It is definitely one of Gerard Butler's better, I think, um, movies where he really has to branch out. I mean, my favorite Gerard Butler movie is Law Abiding Citizen, but in the same vein, um, you know, the discovery of who you are as a person and what you would do in the face of the end of the world,
Mm.
it's pretty interesting. It is very interesting. And this is another one where the effects were actually really good. I like the effects in this one.
And they were very subdued, I think.
Yes, understated, but perfectly blended. Like it mattered, but it mattered because they were understated. So
Yes.
yeah, very good. Okay. Well, my number three is probably my most controversial of the list. And by controversial, I mean you'll probably wonder why I stuck it into this list. It's the 2015 Christmas film called Krampus.
Why did you put
Uh,
that on the list?
yes. Okay. Well, here I'm just about to explain. Okay, so Krampus follows the story of this family. They're kind of an affluent family. They decide to have a Christmas that is, that like, like what do you call it? National Lampoon Chevy Chase Christmas, that kind of Christmas. It doesn't turn out that way, and everybody kind of hates each other, and they do. I don't know. It's they're not nice people. None of them are nice people. And despite the fact that they sort of think that they are living the American dream, clearly they understand that they're not. Now, the reason that I chose this movie is because it occurred to me a couple of years ago when I was watching this movie for the 84th time or something ridiculous. Uh, that these people are living in a world that is not real. It is the end of the world for them. They are living in a snow globe. It is absolutely not the intention of this story that you are supposed to feel badly for people here. You are supposed to understand that choices have been made, and those choices, the sins of the father, in this case, the sins of the grandmother, echo down through the generations and basically created this whole I don't know what you would call this other than end of the world if you were inside of a snow globe for all time and had to keep repeating the same Christmas again and again and again. That Krampus itself is extremely uh again, I think maybe sardonic isn't quite the right way to give this description, but it's extremely biting in its satire. And nothing that happens in this movie is supposed to be comforting. It's very, listen, you made your choices. This is what brought on your personal end of the world. Your personal end of the world is you making these terrible choices. And I kind of loved it because this is one of those movies that takes the supernatural and m- blends in, like, okay, maybe the end of the world doesn't have to be natural causes, some science thing. No, the end of the world could be something more like, hey, here's some things that I've done, here are the repercussions. So That's my choice for number 3. I had to really think about that one too.
I again haven't seen it, but
You haven't seen Krampus?
I have not.
Oh my god, Josh. Okay, after this podcast is over, stop whatever you're doing and go watch Krampus.
But it's not
I mean,
Christmas.
I don't care. Go watch Krampus. You,
Let's
uh,
see.
you have to see it. You have to see it.
It's not available to stream right now.
Oh no! This is another one that I have actually in hard copy, because I'm always afraid that I'll never find it digitally. So I bought the DVD. But
Well,
it's
throw it
so
in the
good.
luggage.
It's so good. Okay, another one that we'll have to watch together. All right, so we're in the top 2 now.
Yes, and I'm gonna say that my number 1 and number 2 are interchangeable.
Oh, okay.
Then the quality of each is, I'd say, as far as public opinions go, very uh, well, maybe not. Hold on, let me see. Da, da, da. Okay, they're not super far apart, but the number 2 is widely considered to be better than my number 1, so I'll give you that.
Hmm.
But when it comes to intimate stories, against the backdrop of the end of the world, I don't think anybody does it better than Lorene Scafaria in 2012, Seeking a Friend for the End of the World. Steve
Good
Carell
one.
plays a lonely guy, and news has gotten out that there is an asteroid going to hit the world. It's going to wipe everything out. So he decides, he's going to take a trip, and his neighbor joins him, played by Keira Knightley. Well, it's, like I said, a very intimate look at these two characters and how they're dealing with the situation, and what turns out as, you know, two people taking a road trip turns into a little something more. And that's one of the problems with movies that shine such a tight spotlight on a couple of characters. You don't really get a whole ton of room to dissect what's going on. You could, but you'd have to take the conversation, and you could fill up the whole hour on things like that, going through the minutia. But very surface level, this is an extremely touching tale about how two people find each other and how they feel about each other, and coming to terms with what could be the inevitable. There is there there aren't many closing shots in a film that really hit as hard as this one, because honestly, I've written a couple of different scripts with sort of the same ending in mind, like done almost the exact same way, and this was long before I even heard of this movie. So seeing it brought to life was incredibly emotional, and everything from the cinematography to the sound design. The sound design is so spot on, and that's not something that you really point out very often when it comes to movies, because it is so visually oriented. But no, when you hear certain things you know certain things. And with this movie in particular, there are a couple of times when you hear a particular sound and it just stops your breath, because what it signifies is um, it's insanity, and it hits so damn hard. Steve Carell does an amazing job and should be recognized as more than just a comedic actor. Not just for this, but for other things as well. Yeah, it's a play on some of his other more dramatic characters. Kind of milk toast. You know, not ha 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 kind of funny, but a little bit more subdued in his reactions. And it might be, and considering I put a Pirates film as a number one movie recently, this is my favorite performance from Keira Knightley. So
Wow.
I love this movie. I love everything about this movie, and every time I watch it, it's like a kick in the gut. That's why it's my
You
number
know,
two.
sometimes, and I alluded to this before, but sometimes end of the world films can be, obviously, just by nature of what they are, very weighty in their topic, or very weighty in their subject. So the plot tends to be pulled down by the weight of the apocalypse, the end of the world, the events that are happening that made this happen. This is one of the reasons that I really liked The Bad Batch as much as I did, because there wasn't a whole lot of explanation about why things had devolved the way that they did. They just did. And we just have to pick up and assume that this is just the new normal. And in movies like the one that you're talking about right now, the 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 difference is that it's almost a subplot that the end of the world is happening. What
Mm-hmm.
matters is the relationship between two people, and by extension, that part of us that is like so human, that this is what's worth holding on to. um and that's difficult, I think, sometimes to juggle, because especially even in my list, stories like the Book of Eli, stories like Legion, stories like Melancholy, they they are absolutely so weighty that it can be difficult to pay attention to the things that are the overarching parts of it, which are, how do we touch our own humanity through this? What is it that makes us feel like this is important? Because obviously, just if it's the end of the world, it's not important. If it's the end of the world, it's the end of the world. What matters is, what are we doing with our time in between, and is there something that is worth holding on to, and how are we having these relationships with each other so that it matters? And I feel like that is one movie that sort of gets it right. The relationships matter in that movie. So yeah, that was a really good choice.
Thank you. Thank you.
My number two choice is, I feel like it's almost a throwaway. I chose it because, first of all, I really like this movie despite the fact that other people don't. I don't quite understand why people hate it as much as they do. Um, I find it incredibly moving in both of its versions, both the version that was the theatrical release and then the version that was more like the director's cut. Um, I really like the messages that I am sent from this, because I do feel like human arrogance is one of our, and then the our striving to fix that is one of the biggest catalysts that we have toward, okay, yes, I realize that I wrecked the world, but now I want to fix it. Um, it's called I Am Legend. It starred Will Smith. Um, it, it my kid wants me to say that It also starred the puppy, because everybody
That's fair.
loved the puppy. Um, but I Am Legend is I think personally one of the best end of the world movies that deal with wanting to fix what is broken and not being able to fix what is broken, having to um, having to accept that you've done something that is irreparable, and having to watch the world fall down around you, knowing that you were a part of its downfall, has got to be just absolutely the most difficult thing in the world. But I also love in this movie this idea that hope isn't always what you think it is. Hope isn't always just from the ego out. Hope is sometimes the things that you almost gather around you as bits and pieces of what you want the world to end up being. And you have to move out of the way of that in order to make it happen. And I mean, one of the biggest lessons that he goes through is learning basically that he needs to get out of the way, that he is not, that his arrogance is one of the biggest problems. And I just love it. I love the inception of the movie. I love the dark themes of the movie. There's one version where he dies at the end, and then there's another version where he lives at the end. He lives long enough to go to the colony in Vermont and actually to me that is actually I'm sad that they didn't release that version. They released the version where hope is carried through the the two people that come into his life, and in a weird way I like that, but in another way the message of the other cut is maybe a little bit more less problematic for me, because he doesn't have to, because he can see, he gets to benefit from this new acceptance that he has something to live for again, other than just to mend his own pride. And I don't know. It's a hard end of the world film to watch, but I feel like it's one of the most iconic end of the world films for me that really portray that. So that's my number two. I Am Legend, 2007, I think.
Also, very famous for predicting the future disaster that was Batman versus Superman.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. There was a billboard in the background.
That
Yes,
said, I missed
it was
that.
a Batman Superman movie poster,
Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay.
and that was the true disaster brought upon the world.
Nice. I won't argue with that. I'm actually okay with it.
Number one, eh?
Number one.
Okay, I'm gonna.
Wait, before you get to number one,
Okay,
Josh, we have not only not had any duplicates on this list, we haven't even come close to having anything duplicated on our list. Like, this list has been way different for you and for me. So,
yeah.
very interesting.
For a second, I thought as you were describing your number two, I was like, "Is that my number one?" It
Oh no.
wasn't. Um, and quite frankly, um, I would have been. I things would have happened if it were. But I'm not going to go into that though, because not many people have heard of my number one, which is crazy. Let me read to you some of the cast real quick, okay? Kevin Smith, not a big part, but he's there. Wallace Shawn, Amy Poehler, Sherry O'Terry, Janine Garofalo, John Larroquette, Christopher Lambert, Nora Dunn, um, John Lovitz, Will Sasso, Mandy Moore, Justin Timberlake, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Sean William Scott, and Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
That's a lot of famous people.
You would think that would have a lot of press, a lot of people knowing what this movie is, right? All-star cast. 2006 movie. 2006 this cast didn't demand box office. Not to mention it was the follow-up to Donnie Darko from director Richard Kelly. I'm talking about Southland Tales. Feels like the air just left the room.
Okay, tell us, because I think you're right. Not a lot of people are going to know what this movie is about. So yeah, I think you really need to tell us what this movie was about.
There is so much going on in this movie. The Rock plays an action movie star that is set to marry a politician's daughter. And there's this, we'll say, controversy surrounding him and an adult film star. That's The Rock's main story. He's doesn't remember what's going on. Doesn't really know what's going on. And then there's Sean William Scott, who wakes up and finds himself in an odd situation with him and John Lovitz playing a racist police officer. Who knew, right? John Lovitz actually doing some weird kind of acting. It was a complete surprise to me. But all of this is being narrated by Justin Timberlake, whom made me sit up and take notice of him as an actor for the first time. Because he's telling the story of the end of the world. The Rock playing Boxer Santaros has all these tattoos on his body of different religious icon symbols, and yes, I had a hard time saying iconography. And the the idea is that there's this sort of, not necessarily prophecy, but when the time comes for the world to end, the one true religion would be revealed. And that's something to look forward to as you watch this movie. Find out what the truth is. But it is so out there with its visuals and its soundtrack. It's a very glossy look at a near futuristic LA area, the Southland, if you will. A far cry from what Donnie Darko was, with its dark and moody ambiance. It's filled with a lot of people that are incredibly selfish, while the main characters, while not selfless in and of themselves, are just trying to figure out what's going on. And I might have forgotten to mention that this is very much an overly policed and very, very monitored world. The police have cameras everywhere. They are anywhere to stop any kind of disruption immediately. It's very locked down, almost fascist kind of state. There is a backstory to all of this that was told in comic book form that it briefly goes into a little bit of a voiceover at the very beginning. After after the nukes go off, the United States just locks down to hopefully prevent any further issues. And for the most part, it seems their tactics are working. But the people, especially the American people, yearn to be free, so they're fighting back against the oppression in several different ways, which is part of the resistance that Sean William Scott finds himself um, involved in a little bit. But he doesn't know. He doesn't really remember what's going. He shows up, and it's a lot like, dude, where's my car? He's like, dude, I'm in a cause.
The the only thing that I'll interject about this movie, which I feel like maybe, although I can see why it's a good end of the world movie, I do feel like people might see this movie and feel like it is an extreme Lynchian experience.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it is amazing, but it can also be incredibly chaotic. And by way of sort of explanation, although I don't know if it quite works, but there are actually three stories that sort of are all combined together in this one movie. It's based on some actual content that and it's difficult, I think, to hold the narrative here. That being said, it's still it's a technical masterpiece. I mean, well, I shouldn't say masterpiece, but it's technically brilliant. It's absolutely gold in that regard. Um, but I also feel like this is one movie that either you're gonna really love it or you're gonna really not love it. Like, either it's gonna really speak to you or you're going to watch it and go, this is so all over the place. I don't know if I can cohesively get the thread of what's even being said here. It just feels like so much stuff and stuff and stuff and stuff. And I mean, to be honest, I think that's one of the beauties of this, is that there is so much there's so much visually happening. But then sometimes I'm like, there's too much visually happening. Like,
Yeah.
you could easily streamline this down and have it be less complicated, and it would still be good. From the end of the world standpoint, though, do you think that this movie gives us a glimpse of what the end of the world might be like? Or is it just sort of like one alternate universe dystopian kind of feel?
That's a good question. I do feel like the actual end of the universe would have fewer ice cream trucks.
Yeah, I kind of think you're on board with that too. Yeah.
But I think you're spot on with pretty much everything you said, and it's gonna be polarizing. Well, it already is polarizing. As far as the audience is concerned, some people say it doesn't make any sense at all, and
Right.
some people like me just enjoy the ride. Things get funky when you add in elements of time travel and the science of the new energy source from the ocean, and when you see a car mount another car and have sex with it, that's kind of weird. And the breakdown of Justin Timberlake doing a music video essentially in the middle of a boardwalk arcade, um, to the killers, all these things, and whatever it's called. I just sang it before the show and I don't even remember the title now. But Justin Timberlake doing the video for a killer song. That's
Right.
And like you said, visually stunning. And The Rock giving a performance as, um, an action star who is very insecure. He's kind of having a hard time in his own skin at this moment. And Sean William Scott, you know, uh, in the middle of conspiracy, trying to figure everything out, seeing all of these things sort of come together at the end, and people finally kind of figuring out what's going on, made it a very enjoyable watch for me. And I will say, has my most quoted line of any movie ever, when Boxer says, "Because I'm a pimp, and pimps don't commit suicide."
I mean, truly, there are a lot of iconic things happening in this film, very much so. And if you like, um, oh god, okay, so now his name is going to completely escape me. Uh, Gaspar Noé. Then I think you're gonna love this. But you have to sort of be willing to ride the surreal train for a while. It's not Blade Runner, because Blade Runner does something much more firmly committed to reality and its gritty storytelling, even though it too is all over the place. But it's not that. It is definitely much more surreal in its presentation. So you have to be willing to sort of go along on that ride. Which, yeah, I mean, I, I, I can see it going either way. I really can.
Well, I think
Well,
two things happened here as I gave my number one. I think
yes.
my adoration for you shot up because you knew what the hell I was talking about. I think your
Hey,
respect for me went out the window.
movies are, I mean, honestly, let's not forget, okay, I went to college to become a filmmaker. That's not what happened, but I did start out with those intentions. So movies really speak to me. It means something to me to be able to dissect a movie. It's one of the reasons I love doing this, actually. So,
Well, that was my number one. What is your number one movie
all right.
for the
So my number one movie is completely and totally just a thoroughly fun film. It does end the world, but it does so in just the best way possible. And also, I will watch a movie twice a day and three times on Saturday just to see Sigourney Weaver in it. So I am going with Cabin in the Woods. Cabin in the Woods begins like all other, stop at the gas station. There always has to be the guy who looks like he might know what's really going on, but he's just a local yokel. And they head out to the cabin, and all of these creepy, crazy things start to happen. But little do they know that it's all being orchestrated by a very secret, but very powerful and well organized, apparently, underground system that is catering to the elder gods. And there has to be a certain amount of things that happen in order for the elder gods to be appeased. They do this all over the world. By the end of the film, it kind of all comes down to two of our main characters, and whew, what a ride. In the end, they decide that, hey, no, let's just end the world, because I don't know why. Why do we want to end the world? But no, that's what they choose. They want to end the world. So I guess a world where the elder gods um, are feeding off of our ridiculous emotions and their need to, I don't know, be entertained is too much for our heroes and heroines. But I have to say, every single step of the way, Cabin in the Woods is my most favorite end of the world movie. It never disappoints. There is always something new to see. Every single scene has some little nugget of goodness in it. And who doesn't love a good merman story? Well, okay, just a tiny little itty bitty part, but still. I absolutely loved this movie. It is so, the irony in it is just so clear, but the metaphor is so much bigger than anything I feel like it's always there in every single horror movie that I've ever seen, but no one has ever presented it in such a clear headed fashion. It is everything that is Evil Dead. It is everything that is Halloween. It is everything that is every movie that you've ever seen that deals with these, kind of odd creatures that you just can't figure out where they came from. Oh, wait, there's a secret cabal of people appeasing these gods, and that's why all of these other creatures are roaming the planet. It's the writing in this is so on point. It's just perfect. I love, I savor every moment of this. And it's not like, there's some kind of Shakespearean level of dialogue being imparted. It's that it's so incredibly uncomplicated in what it's trying to tell you. And that's the beauty. It's just a simple story that has massive implications. So, that's my number one, Cabin in the Woods. This, ironically or unironically, is where I fell in love with Chris Hemsworth too. So, just a little shout out to my favorite guy.
Well, I for once have something to say about your pick.
All right.
I was told to go into this movie blind. They
Oh
said,
no.
don't read about it. And it was pitched to me as just another slasher flick. It's like, okay, sure. You're saying it's good, that it does something different. That's the way I like my horror, different.
Hmm.
So I went in and I watched it, and I was like, okay, yeah, they're going to a cabin in the woods, the teenagers, and yeah, people are gonna start getting taken out. And wait, what? When this sci what? Now it's sci-fi and demons, and the whole thing is just going nuts.
Sideways is the best way.
I did not see it coming, and I loved every second of it, especially with the nihilist ending of yeah, screw it.
Exactly.
So
But I love
absolutely amazing choice.
but I love the fact that Sigourney Weaver's character has to stand there and basically, like, pitch it, pitch it hard. Hey, we've, this is important. You're part of something big. You have to recognize this. This is your moment to shine. And instead, they went completely opposite and were like, nope, never mind. Okay, we're done. And the fact that the world is falling around, are falling apart around them, also just highlights and enhances that feeling of, yeah, wow, this was such a bold choice, but it was for nothing. I mean, that's the thing, it was for nothing.
Very, very much love this pick, and one of the things that really made me fall in love with this movie is the escalating, not just the escalated tension, but the God, words, right? The
The stakes.
there you go, the escalating stakes, where it's not it goes from, oh no, teenagers are dying, to it's the end of the world.
Right. Right. And all of the, I mean, okay, props to the prop department, because that seller is absolutely a gold mine for sequel material, except the world ended, so we don't get a sequel. I mean, like, it's just so perfect. There's so much to explore, and to for our end of the world techs to be so excited about the end of the world that they're throwing a party is like, Y- because they're staving off the end of the world. Yay, but it's not about staving off the end of the world. It's about them getting their choices on the board. And it just, the party atmosphere of it is so incredibly juxtaposed and interesting when you compare it to, okay, no, look, you're not going to screw with us anymore. We're done. Okay, bye. Okay, so it's the end of the world. Well, okay, maybe a new world will form. Who knows? But the monsters, whoever the eldritchy monsters that have everything at stake, first of all, we never really get to see them, but secondly, it doesn't matter. And I just love that. Like, it doesn't matter what is whatever else is happening, because they made their choice. It's over. I mean, that's just like crazy good. Crazy good.
Well, congratulations on a wonderful list.
Yeah, yes, you too. I this again, you and I had very different lists, but I feel like they were awesome in the scope of stuff that we have explored here.
Absolutely. I think between our two lists, we have covered every reason to want to watch something about the end of the world, whether it's
Absolutely.
a personal story, a few laughs, or just watching stuff blow up.
Indeed. Or a Christmas story, which is
even,
important.
even a Christmas story, yes.
So, do you want to know what's going to happen next week on our 10 to 1 list?
Yes, I do.
All right. Well, it's spooky season. So, I have chosen to kick off spooky season with a simple selection of our favorite Halloween movies. That is, movies that you would sit down to watch on Halloween. I realize this is sort of wide open and all over the place, but I feel like that's also one of the reasons that it would make a good list. Definitely have to pare down your ideas about what is a good movie to watch on Halloween.
Okay, okay. I think I can handle this.
I mean, I have a billion,
You
right?
do.
Yes, but so putting them in a list of top 10 is definitely a challenge.
I think we're going to have the opposite issues here where I don't have a billion to pull from,
Ooh.
but I also think I will be able to fill it with some very cool features. And quite frankly, as much as I thought this week, with its kind of laser focus as a topic would be, we were bound to have some crossover. Not one. And I'm thinking next week, even though you have a billion to choose from, we might still have some sort of crossover.
Yeah, there are some movies that are just iconically Halloween, so I think you may be right. I think you may be right. As an addendum, one, because it is on topic, The Munsters came out on Netflix. And you know what? Ignore Rotten Tomatoes. Don't listen to critics. Watch it. It is so fun. I mean, it's just Rob Zombie having a good time, and everyone gets to benefit. So that's one. And two, this week on Disney Plus, Hocus Pocus 2 premieres. So more spooky goodness, lots of fun, very on brand for Halloween. Exciting.
'Tis the season.
Indeed. Yes, that is topically why I chose what I chose.
Well, then, how about we run through our top 10 list for tonight?
All right, let's run through it. Do you want to go first or should I go first?
I can go first. It's cool. It's cool.
All right.
My top 10 end of the world list. Number 10, Armageddon. Number 9, 2012, or 2012, as it's called in some markets. Number 8, This Is the End. Number 7, Knowing. Number 6, It's a Disaster. Number 5, Don't Look Up. Number 4, Doctor Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. Number 3, Greenland, also called Greenland in some markets. Number 2, Seeking a Friend for the End of the World. And number 1, Southland Tales. What do you have, Jen?
All right. My number 10 was Melancholia. My number 9 was Legion. Number 8, Gabriel. Number 7, The Bad Batch. Number 6, The Crazies. Love those crazies. Number 5, Reign of Fire. Number 4, The Book of Eli. Number 3, That Crazy Critter Krampus. Number 2, I Am Legend. And number 1, Cabin in the Woods.
An amazing list you put together there, Jen.
Thank you. And also yours as well. We had a lot of really good discussion this week. Thank you so much for all of this. It was wonderful.
I sounded almost smart.
You are smart. Yes, absolutely.
Well, I know you are a big fan of the spooky season. Why don't you tell us what's going on at moviesandmeals.com?
So, moviesandmeals.com continues its Halloween countdown. More recipes still being posted. Lots and lots of things like gnarled fingers and movies like Hellraiser, movies that sort of deal with all of those spooky, scary, really gross kind of things. Most of my recipes aren't particularly difficult to make, but they are fun. So head over there, take a look, and join us on Thursdays for TV dinners when we discuss all kinds of things for TV. This week, what are we doing this week? I actually don't remember what we're doing this week. I'm sure it's fun, whatever it is. And one other quick, just little tiny piece of business about our podcast. I have more fun doing these lists than I ever could have imagined. So I really want to thank you, Josh. It really is fun, honestly.
I know, right?
It is much more fun than I even imagined it would be, which is hard.
This is just built around something I would do as I'm sitting on the bus, with a notebook. Like, you know what? I'm going to come up with a list. What kind of list? It doesn't matter. I'm just going to put together a list. And sometimes it's movie related, sometimes it's TV related, sometimes it's food related. I'm all over the place. But just having this ability to do a show built around something I just love to do on a daily basis is a wonderful thing, and I'm so happy to have you here doing it with me.
Awesome. Very awesome. And I mean, there's a million ways to find you around the internet, right?
Oh, yeah, I'm all over the place. First of all, you can go to wadcomedia.com to find all of the pertinent links. You might have heard of this show called TV Dinners. That's on Thursday nights at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 Pacific. It's great discussions about television, as Jen was just telling you about. And tomorrow night's topic is a good one, I'm sure.
I'm so sorry that I completely forgot it, but I'm sure that it's good as well. I mean, I do know what it is. It's
okay.
It's TV. I'm so sorry. It's TV series that were based on books.
Books.
It just came to me.
Yes.
TV series that were based on books. Yes. So I can't wait to hear what everyone's literary take is on how we interpret. Man, there's some really bad ones, but there's some really good ones too. So can't wait to have that discussion.
And all I had to do was look at the artwork for the upcoming episode. It's there. It's there.
I'm just going to blame the cookies. It's the cookies. The cookies are doing it to me.
Those Target cookies.
Darn.
But if you're also interested in hearing the dulcet tones of my voice, you could listen to the Wadcast every Friday night at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. What are we going to talk about this week? I don't know. It's not 10 minutes before showtime. So, you know, we haven't figured that out yet. And quite frankly, Brandon, I love you, but we don't know if you're going to be on the show yet because, you know, your job is going to be a pain in my butt. I'm kidding. You know, everybody's got to make money.
Maybe Josh and I will just have another discussion about like slasher movies and stuff. So, yeah.
Could be, but it would feel
You
kind of
never
weird.
know.
It would be September 30th and not October 1st. Notification.
I believe. I believe in the power of Halloween. You can begin it anytime you want to.
Which you did at moviesandmeals.com. Don't forget to.
And yes, absolutely.
But I guess that's all. That's going to do it for us tonight. Once again, thank you, everybody that popped in and joined us. Give us your 2 cents. I should. I am going to throw this out there. If you want to see any of my lists in their entirety, they are available at Letterboxd. I am Skit Comic. It's a household name. And all you got to do is search it up under members, and you will see all of my lists from 10 to 1, as well as some other arbitrary lists that I've made. I've put together lists of best movies by year. Try to keep it to a top 10. Maybe that'll be a subject one of these days where we're like, you know what? Let's talk about the best movies of 2003. Who knows?
Nice.
Seems just kind of random. So, of course, I did it. So, Letterboxd, Letterboxd. No, we're not getting paid to plug them, although it would be nice.
Yeah, I'll contact corporate Target about the cookies. We'll try to. Yeah, we'll come up with something.
Send us money.
Or cookies.
Or cookies. I'd settle for a free upgraded Letterboxd account too. So Letterboxd, if you're listening. So that's going to do it for us tonight. Can't thank you guys enough for joining us. Can't thank Jen enough for being a part of this. I hope everybody has a great and wonderful week. And yeah, that's it. Stay safe out there. It's getting a little windy.
Be safe. Yeah.